school. One day, it dawns on you that there might be an opportunity to get paid to do laundry for your fellow students. With your parents coming in a few days for Parents' Weekend, you were so embarrassed by your roommate's dirty clothes strewn all over his side of the room that you offered to do his laundry for him. He was more than happy to take you up on your offer and even was willing to pay you $5 per load to take that responsibility off his plate. You made a little money, he got clean laundry, and both of you pulled Parents' Weekend off without a hitch. Word got out that you did laundry for your neighbor, and before you knew it, you had 3 emails from other students wanting you to do the same thing for them. After 2 afternoons of work, you did 14 loads of laundry, and made $70. You started to think this might be a good way to earn some extra cash for the semester. Using what you know about project management from this chapter, and adapting the DPE model in particular, create a business plan for your student laundry company that will allow you to maintain focus on your studies while maximizing your income. (189) Chapter 10. Performance Evaluation. The best teams have such a strong commitment to success that they are constantly evaluating their performance and learning from their mistakes. In most successful organizations, there is a similar urgency to continually improve and refine internal processes. This requires evaluation, learning, intervention, and follow-through. This chapter presents tools for performance evaluation and strategies for continuous improvement. It begins by describing 2 types of assessments, task and interpersonal, before exploring the typical dysfunctions of teams. Then it discusses how teams can learn from their experiences, change, and improve their performance. Case 10.1, Southwest Airlines. From its beginning, Southwest Airlines faced one challenge after another. Although the Texas Aeronautics Commission approved Southwest's request to fly on February 20, 1968, competitors used legal and political pressure to keep Southwest planes out of the air for 3 years. Not one to be intimidated, CEO Herb Kelleher fought all the way to the Texas and United States Supreme Courts for the right to be in business. Jackson and Schuler, 2002. In 1971, Southwest began flying 4 Boeing 737 planes among a select number of cities within the state of Texas. Due to early financial problems, one of those planes had to be sold. The airline industry is a challenging business, and companies have only a limited amount of time to become profitable. Since the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978, many carriers have gone bankrupt due to fierce competition and lower fares. Southwest positioned itself in the market as a low-cost, no-frills carrier with a strong commitment to customer satisfaction. The mission of Southwest is to deliver exemplary customer service with a sense of warmth, friendliness, individual pride, and company spirit. In order to keep costs down and customer satisfaction high, Southwest had to turn planes around with the utmost efficiency and service. Ch10, 2003. With only 3 planes, company officials needed to keep them filled and flying as much as possible. According to the industry average, planes take 55 minutes from landing to takeoff. Jackson and Schuler, 2002. Crews use this time to unload and load luggage, to clean out and restock the planes, and to fuel and prepare them for the next flight. Southwest wanted to cut this turnaround time to 10 minutes. This would be a formidable challenge. The airline industry has traditionally held one of the highest concentrations of union membership and representation among U.S. corporations. Ch10, 2003. There is a long history of management labor problems that working in teams 190 has led to an adversarial and, at times, contentious relationship between the two. Not only did labor distrust management, different functional roles within Southwest distrusted one another. For example, flight attendants were suspicious of pilots, who were perceived as condescending toward gate agents, who in turn got frustrated with mechanics. So one can imagine that baggage handlers and flight crews would not have been overly enthusiastic about the prospect of 10-minute turnarounds. Workers were being asked to work harder with no increase in pay. In order to be successful, Southwest had to create a culture of mutual respect and collaboration, the likes of which had never before been seen in the airline industry. Everyone had to pitch in to get the planes back in the air, even if it was not in their job description. Over time, they were able to turn planes around 50% faster than the industry average. According to Ch10, 2003, the primary reason for Southwest's success can be summed up in one word: relationships. More specifically, the company places high value on the relationships between and among its managers, employees, unions, and suppliers. Somehow, Southwest has created a rich, relational environment characterized by a shared vision, shared identity, and mutual respect. In the first half of the 1990s, Southwest was #1 in on-time arrivals, luggage handling, and customer service for 5 years running, an accomplishment that is unrivaled in the airline industry. Southwest evaluated performance and set the standard for success with concrete measures such as average turnaround times and customer satisfaction ratings. Not only did the company benefit from a concentrated commitment to performance standards, its customers did as well. Case study discussion questions. 1. How do you get different people from different departments who do not trust one another to work together as a united organization? 2. What are some common reasons why people are suspicious of others and engage in turf battles? 3. What are some of the unique characteristics of Southwest that sets it apart from other airlines? 4. How did Southwest measure performance? In order to become a high-performing team, work groups must evaluate themselves regularly and monitor various benchmarks that measure team performance. Ongoing data collection, analysis, and application are necessary for a team, or organization, of any size to get a sense of relative performance. Depending upon the metrics or key performance indicators of the team or organization, data collection methods will vary. For example, baseball teams are notorious for their collection, analysis, and application of situational performance data. A pitcher's tendencies and pitch selection patterns can be identified over time, which can help batters anticipate the next pitch in a range of circumstances. Conversely, pitchers can get their coach's help in determining the weaknesses of opposing batters by analyzing film data and batting performance in a variety of situations. A great example of the power of data analysis is the now famous story of the 2002 Oakland A's, the Major League Baseball club featured in Michael Lewis's 2003 book, Moneyball. The Art of Winning an Unfair Game, also a 2011 feature film starring Brad Pitt. Chapter 10 Performance Evaluation 191. Led by Billy Beane, the A's used objective, empirical evidence of players' performance to assemble a winning team that could compete with the superstar players and enormous payrolls of larger market teams. Backed into a financial corner, the A's organization turned to a statistical analysis method known as sabermetrics, based on the acronym SABR, for the Society for American Baseball Research, in order to determine that players with a high on-base percentage were more valuable yet cheaper to acquire than players with strengths in other, more popular metrics like batting average or runs scored. Essentially, Beane's approach to recruiting was driven by a major financial constraint. He was operating with a third of the payroll of the New York Yankees, so he had to find undervalued players who could win games. A detailed analysis of player statistics helped him find those players, and the Oakland A's were able to build their championship team with players who were overlooked by other clubs. The key to using data effectively is first to identify factors that represent a connection to positive outcomes or team success. Then this information can be collected and analyzed to determine how well a team is doing in relation to its goals. When evaluating team performance, there are two areas that need to be examined: task assessment, for example assignments, deliverables, goal achievement, and timelines, and interpersonal assessments, cohesion, interpersonal skills, and member satisfaction. The most successful teams regularly evaluate their own performance and utilize the results to foster continuous improvement. Task assessment. Outcome-based assessments require and presuppose the establishment of team goals. The ultimate goal or mission of a team is often defined by the organization or institution within which it operates. In one particular college course, students are assigned to teams and spend an entire semester working on a consulting project that involves identifying and solving a real problem on campus. At the end of the semester, they have to present their recommendation and submit a report to support their findings. In this example, every team has the same two tasks, a presentation and a report, that can be evaluated according to the same objective criteria. Most teams have similar performance goals related to grade achievement. They want to earn an A on the project. But this loose definition of success will rarely produce the results students want. As discussed in Chapter 9, on project management, successful teams find ways to define, plan, and monitor progress toward their stated goals. When specific goals are defined concretely, it is much easier to set out a project timeline with milestones in order to chart progress and gauge relative success. This, then, facilitates an opportunity for members to have honest and open dialogue because of objective standards that allow constructive discussion based on whether or not individual members and the team as a whole have measured up to their own standards of success. Team performance is strongly related to the way in which work is distributed among its members. In order to avoid problems of work inequity, groups should discuss how they will approach the workload before they make task assignments. If a given member is unable to commit fully to the team throughout the project, there are likely ways that he or she can add value on more concentrated tasks. Perhaps this individual can take on working in teams. 192. The responsibility of presenting the final product, or be a part of another task that doesn't require as much time but is still of value to the team. There may very well be members on the team who are motivated to step forward and own certain parts of the project that are of particular interest to them. Regardless of how the workload is divided up, expected member contributions must be made explicit in order to establish a reference point for tracking individual contributions relative to the responsibilities, tasks, and goals of the team. Interpersonal assessment. Group cohesion. Hollywood feature films in which leaders brilliantly galvanize their group or team through shared hardship and inspire commitment to a common goal are plentiful. Films like Braveheart, depicting William Wallace's leadership of the Scottish resistance to King Edward's rule, We Are Marshall, about the Marshall University football program's recovery from a tragic plane crash that killed nearly every member of the team, Miracle, about the 1980 U.S. men's hockey team's quest to defeat the indomitable Russian team, or Remember the Titans, about a football team from a newly integrated high school that fights to overcome adversity, personal challenges, and social prejudice, all emphasize the importance of group cohesion. Cohesion can be deduced by observing the ways members interact with one another before, during, and after meetings. Teams that have high levels of group cohesion are not only committed to the mission of the group, they are committed to one another. Rolly Massimino, the legendary coach of the 1985 Villanova men's basketball team that defeated the highly favored Georgetown Hoyas to win the NCAA national championship, said that good players play for themselves but great players play for each other. Members of highly cohesive teams are quick to take personal responsibility for team failures but give credit to the team for successes. Another way to measure group cohesion is by conducting team surveys. Members can fill out an online or paper and pencil survey that measures team construct such as commitment, camaraderie, and cohesion. The following survey is an example of the kind of questions that can be asked to measure the cohesion of a group. Average scores below 3.0 on any question could signal a potential problem. When interpreting the results of these types of surveys, leaders must consider the group's stage of development. Groups will generally begin their project at a moderate level of cohesion, dip during the storming and norming phases, and then increase as the group begins to see improved coordination, trust, and progress. Another example of group cohesiveness can be found in the military's approach to training and onboarding. Basic training is a crucible through which all new recruits must pass. New members are stripped down as individuals and built back up as a unit. Individual goals are broken by drill instructors and replaced by shared goals that value team success. Their code of conduct is defined by the expectations of their military branch, their drill instructors, and the culture that permeates their units. Regardless of one's stance on military action, without group cohesiveness to this degree, the confusion, ambiguity, and intensity. Chapter 10 Performance Evaluation 193 of battle would pose an insurmountable threat. Again, this facet of interpersonal assessment is important to the group's ability to withstand hardship, overcome obstacles, and succeed as a team. Thus, drill sergeants and other military leaders are constantly monitoring the level of cohesion in their troops. Interpersonal skills. Chapter 3, on interpersonal dynamics, suggested that typical interpersonal problems emerge when members have extreme amounts of assertiveness, being either dominant or submissive, sociability, being either overly friendly or cold and aloof, or interpersonal sensitivity, being either overly sensitive or insensitive. Team leaders or group observers can measure these three variables by watching the interaction among members, Ch10, 2012. In addition, members can reflect on their own strengths and weaknesses and ask teammates for feedback about their interpersonal performance. Kim Valia, Chief People Officer at Tractor Supply Company, encourages the use of start, stop, and continue. She regularly asks team members what they would like her to start doing that she is not already doing, what they would like her to stop doing that is not very helpful, and what they would like her to continue doing. This way, not only does she get rich feedback about her own performance, but she also models a commitment to continuous improvement to her colleagues and direct reports. Strongly disagree. Disagree. Neutral. Agree. Strongly agree. I enjoy working with this group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People in this group seem to like one another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everyone does an equal share of the work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everyone is free to express their ideas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People are respectful of others. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This group works well together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I feel appreciated in this group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People are committed to this group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This group understands its goals and purpose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Relationships are an important part of this group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Table 10.1 Group Attitude Questionnaire. Working in teams. 194. Accurate feedback can significantly impact personal and interpersonal development. Multi-rater surveys or 360-degree assessments typically include a self-assessment and an assessment from peers, coworkers, or teammates. They can also include an assessment from a boss or supervisor, direct reports, or customers. These multiple viewpoints give individuals a more complete view of their strengths, and potential weaknesses. The feedback can be very useful because it raises self-awareness, identifies areas that need to be strengthened and developed, and begins a process of personal growth and learning. Groups benefit when members are actively engaged in team discussions. Thus, a group observer might simply count the number of comments each member makes during a team meeting. That information can help determine if certain members are talking too much or too little, which can signal potential communication problems. Nonverbal behavior and seating arrangements can also be used to identify members who are at the interpersonal extremes. Dominant members like to be in the middle of the action, and tend to speak loudly, while detached members prefer to stay on the fringes, and are tentative when they speak. In either case, members may need training in either active listening or assertiveness in order to achieve more balanced communication. The following list identifies some of the important interpersonal dynamics to look for in groups. There is balanced participation from all members. Members feel free to express themselves. Members suspend their assumptions, and stay open to new ideas. Members work hard to understand other perspectives. Dialogue is always respectful yet spirited at times. Formal measures of emotional intelligence are also available to assess the interpersonal skills of members. The following website contains a wealth of information on emotional intelligence, including assessment tools and training materials: www.iconsortium.org. Member satisfaction. One of the criteria for successful groups is the level of satisfaction among its members. Teams can be tremendously successful, but if the members were dissatisfied with the experience, the success was limited. Levine, 1973, studied 64 three-person teams of college students who engaged in role-playing exercises, and measured two specific variables. 1. The amount of control possessed by all members, and 2. How this control was distributed. He found that the total amount of control members had over decision-making, and the degree to which that control was equally shared among the members had a positive influence on the team performance, and on member satisfaction. Put another way, Levine's results showed that group members tend to be more satisfied in groups in which they have some influence and control. Conversely, in groups in which the power to make and influence decisions and take action is limited to only a few members, with others being dismissed and marginalized, the average satisfaction score decreases. Levine, 1973. Chapter 10: Performance Evaluation. 195. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Ch10, 2002-2005, has identified 5 specific challenges or team dysfunctions that commonly prevent groups from realizing their potential. One of the most detrimental problems he has observed in teams is the absence of trust. Without trust, groups are reluctant to confront pressing issues. As a result, team members develop a fear of conflict. A reluctance to speak up and challenge the status quo then produces a lack of commitment to the group. And since a lack of commitment means that members are not giving their best effort, this leads to an avoidance of accountability. People do not want to be held accountable, thus, they do not hold their fellow members accountable to the goals of the group. Finally, without mutual commitment and accountability, group members will often put their own agendas before that of the group and display inattention to results. Each of these dysfunctions is described below, along with practical suggestions to improve them. Absence of trust. Researchers have long recognized the importance of trust in group and organizational performance. Costa and Taylor, 2001, Duarte and Snyder, 2001, Kanawatanagai and Yu, 2002. Lencioni, 2002, suggests that trust requires vulnerability and the willingness to share weaknesses and admit mistakes. An open, honest environment tends to lead to more of the same. Trust is developed when members believe that their teammates are competent, diligent, and committed to the team. In contrast, an absence of trust creates a tense environment where members hold back and are reluctant to pursue collective goals or engage in genuine communication. In the opening case study, members of different groups within Southwest Airlines such as the pilots, flight attendants, and mechanics did not trust one another. In general, members of each group did not believe the other groups were committed to the overall success of the organization. Some may have also believed that members of other groups got many more benefits than they deserved. Once perceptions such as these are established, they are hard to reverse, and can quickly spiral out of control. Ch10, 2002-2005, makes a number of practical suggestions for building trust in teams. Groups can engage in a personal histories exercise, where members share personal information about themselves. It is difficult to think poorly of others when members see one another as authentic human beings with similar life experiences, since it can be hard for members. Working in teams. 196. To trust people they do not know, this activity can go a long way in establishing a shared identity and building bridges among them. Mannix and Neal, 2005. Other ways to learn about colleagues include personality profiles such as the DESC, Myers-Briggs Temperament Indicator, MBTI, or Learning Styles Inventory. These profiles give members an opportunity to understand one another better and to value individual differences. In the team effectiveness exercise, members identify the most important contribution they think each of their teammates brings to the group. This allows members to recognize one another's strengths and generates goodwill among them. It also creates an environment where members feel valued and appreciated. Finally, team leaders can be influential in building trust as they model vulnerability and initiate the willingness to critique their own mistakes and shortcomings. This establishes group norms that value honesty, learning, and respectful feedback. Fear of conflict. For some people, conflict can be uncomfortable even when it is healthy and productive. Ch10, 2005. In the midst of a heated debate, conflict often provokes a fight or flight. Figure 10.1 The 5 dysfunctions of a team. Inattention to results. Avoidance of accountability. Lack of commitment. Fear of conflict. Absence of trust. Source. Adapted from La Mobile, 1985-1990. Chapter 10 Performance Evaluation. 197. Response, which is detrimental to group functioning. As a result, groups can default to an artificial harmony to avoid conflict. Ironically, highly cohesive groups avoid conflict and, instead, encourage conformity. Conflicts that do erupt are often attempts to win arguments and convince the group of a certain way of doing things. When it turns personal and bitter, it can sabotage the work of the team, and is often the most distasteful part of group life. In contrast, healthy conflict exists when members vigorously debate and challenge one another without resorting to personal attacks that create an atmosphere of hostility, fear, and guardedness. On one end of the conflict spectrum is avoidance of conflict, and an overemphasis on cohesion and conformity. On the other end of the spectrum is conflict that is personal and hostile. Even the most effective groups will have difficulty finding the right balance. For example, Ch10, 2005, suggests a forum for group members to discuss their own comfort level and experiences with conflict. Tools such as the Thomas Kilmann Conflict Mode instrument allow members to identify and describe their style of conflict. Discussing various conflict styles allows groups to create norms that define and value productive conflict. Another strategy is to assign the role of minor of conflict to a group member who will identify and call attention to potential conflicts that are not being addressed in group discussions. Finally, group leaders can model healthy conflict management skills by not avoiding issues, and encouraging group members to engage in vigorous discussion by respectfully challenging one another's ideas. Eisenhart, Conway, and Bourgeois, 1997. Lack of commitment. Commitment in teams begins with a shared vision. Effective teams have clearly defined goals, and a commitment from all members to achieve those goals. Porter, 2005. A lack of commitment on the part of any member weakens the whole group. When members do not feel like they can be open and speak their minds, they will tend to slide toward either marginal commitment or even passive-aggressive resistance. Ch10, 2005, has consistently found that members will buy into group decisions, even when their ideas are not adopted, as long as their ideas have been heard. The Intel Corporation describes this as the ability of team members to disagree and commit. A lack of commitment can occur at the group level when teams are indecisive and reluctant to make a decision or choose a course of action. While consensus is an admirable goal in group decision-making, it is not always possible or even advisable. To assess and address issues related to commitment, the leader can ask for a commitment clarification at the end of meetings so members can summarize what was decided and review individual commitments, with deadlines, for each of the members. This simple practice removes uncertainty and reinforces responsibility. In addition, a regular assessment of group goals and progress toward those goals helps keep the group motivated and focused. Leaders can help engender commitment by clarifying the decisions of the group, pushing for action on open issues, and adhering to agreed-upon schedules and deadlines. Avoidance of accountability. Ch10, 2002-2005, has noticed that many group members have a hard time holding one another accountable to performance standards. They assume that is the leader's job. But working in teams. 198. Groups reach a higher level of effectiveness when members hold one another accountable. Members of high-performing teams work hard because they do not want to let their teammates down. Thus, positive peer pressure can be an effective tool for maintaining high standards of performance and accountability. A helpful way to encourage members to hold one another accountable is to publish the group's goals and work plan for all to see. If everyone is clear about the tasks of the group, and each member's role, then there is a standard against which individual performance can be measured. Members can give regular progress or status reports to update the group. If a member is not performing, the leader could ask the group what needs to be done. This empowers the group to take responsibility for its own maintenance, and to address the underperforming member collectively. Similarly, the leader should be willing to be held accountable to the group and model gracious acceptance of constructive feedback. Another way to increase the likelihood of peer accountability is to use team performance incentives. If the team, as opposed to the individual, is rewarded for performance, members will be more inclined to hold one another to higher standards. Inattention to results. Effective groups have clearly defined goals, and regularly evaluate their progress toward those goals. Measurable goals and regular assessment provides continuous feedback that helps groups stay focused and on task. Over time, though, members can lose sight of team goals and become more concerned with their own personal success. Individual egos, personal agendas, career development goals, money, and loyalties to other groups can deter them from focusing on the success of the workgroup. To overcome these tendencies, Ch10, 2002-2005, encourages the use of a scoreboard or dashboard that gauges the performance of the group. Various quantitative metrics can be charted such as revenue, expenses, new accounts, or deadlines in a graphically appealing fashion. In addition, those results can be made available to the larger organization in the same way that box scores document the performance of baseball players and teams the day after a ball game. Public accountability ensures that members will pay more attention to their own performance. Finally, reward systems that are tied to team performance reinforce the importance of collective success. Team learning. Evaluating team performance and measuring progress allows teams to learn from their experiences, identify problems, and make mid-course corrections. Guido and Conrad, 2011. A playful definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. In general, if a team wants different results, members have to learn from their mistakes, make changes, and do something different. When established as part of a team's culture, the following 3 learning practices can drive performance to new heights and help teams reach their potential. A. Timely identification of mistakes. B. Effective and ongoing analysis. And C. Deliberate experimentation. Chapter 10 Performance Evaluation. 199. Timely identification of mistakes. Timely review, identification, and response to mistakes require openness and a willingness to look critically at individual and group performance. Cannon and Edmondson, 2005. In order to improve group performance and facilitate learning, teams need blameless reporting systems. The shared understanding that identifying mistakes is different from placing blame. Mistakes should be seen as learning opportunities, and not opportunities to punish someone. This requires psychological safety in which members are secure in their role. They know that a mistake will not have severe, negative repercussions. Team leaders need to reinforce the importance of identifying and learning from mistakes instead of covering them up and saving face. Garvin, Edmondson, and Gino, 2008. Many units in the military perform an after-action review to identify problems and mistakes. For example, the U.S. Army's 160th Special Forces Unit, based in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, debriefs all of its training activities and military operations as an opportunity to hone skills, improve coordination, and execute more efficiently. These debriefings are task-oriented, data-driven sessions that add a great deal of value and precision to this highly trained, expertly assembled, interdependent group of military specialists. In this case, identifying mistakes and learning from them can literally save lives. Effective and ongoing analysis. In order to learn from their mistakes, groups must be able to effectively analyze their performance, whether in a corporate office, on a sports field, on the battlefield, or in a college classroom. In every industry there are benchmarks or exemplars of best practice. Until recently, Toyota was the common standard against which companies in the auto industry measured themselves. Its relentless commitment to Kaizen, a philosophy of continuous improvement, in its production lines drove down incidents of flawed assembly. For a long time in professional baseball, the New York Yankees were the standard bearer. In consulting, McKinsey & Company leads the way, in banking, Goldman Sachs, and in higher education, Harvard University. These are the benchmarks against which organizations and institutions can measure their performance. Comparative assessment is an example of how groups can approach objective, externally implied self-assessment. In order to make benchmarks useful, however, groups and teams need regular debriefings and evaluations. As with the 160th Special Forces Unit described above, after-action reviews are regularly conducted in the high-stakes, high-stress environment of emergency medicine. Healthcare, in general, uses debriefings and evaluations quite effectively, holding review boards, and requiring meticulous record-keeping in order to establish and refine best practice as well as guard against malpractice. As with after-action reviews, morning meetings for care teams, and medical review boards for physicians involve specific, critical evaluation of successes and failures in an effort to minimize variability, and improve quality of care. Such formal review processes are also standard in the airline industry with FOD investigations into plane crashes and emergency landings. Without a dedication to critical review and ongoing evaluation, team performance stagnates, mistakes proliferate, and progress stalls. Working in teams. 200. Deliberate experimentation. Once mistakes and shortcomings have been identified and analyzed, it is time to make changes. But changing structures, roles, or operating procedures can be met with resistance. Fostering innovation, creativity, and thinking outside of the box requires a posture of deliberate experimentation, and a willingness to take risks. While change can be uncomfortable, it is necessary. With a rapidly changing marketplace, groups need to be flexible and adaptive. The most innovative groups fail early and fail often, providing an ongoing opportunity to learn and improve. Knowing what does not work can be just as important as knowing what does work. Whether on a group or organizational level, strong leadership is needed to drive change and stay the course in the face of resistance and less than impressive early results. Change agents. Change is an unavoidable part of organizational life, regardless of the industry or setting. Jack Welch, former CEO of General Electric, once famously stated, "When your company is not changing as fast as its environment, it is already beginning to die." The same applies to teams and workgroups. If a team, group, or organization finds itself falling behind the change curve, something drastic must be done to revitalize it and turn things around. A change agent is someone who can bring a fresh perspective, a strong vision, and the willingness and drive to see change through. Steve Jobs was one such catalyst. In fact, it is not easy to encapsulate the extent to which his leadership style was suited to initiating and sustaining innovation. From his early days with Apple Computer, Jobs consistently demonstrated his transcendental capacity for entrepreneurial drive, and for building successful companies. Jobs was a visionary, a driver, and a high-profile change agent. After his return to Apple in 1997, he proved himself to be a major turnaround expert. What made Jobs a powerful and effective change agent also made him a contentious figure. He was not only demanding but had a huge ego. He pushed his teams to be the best they could be but also had the reputation of being a dictator, and was known as an enfant terrible, Berlitz, 1999. That description is rich with imagery that paints a picture of Jobs as an uncompromising, driven, aggressive, magnetic figure. Such a strong personality with singular vision was bound to be divisive. Turnaround experts often have a mercurial approach that involves the highest highs and the lowest lows, demanding the absolute extremes of performance from everyone involved. But this is understandable, given the scale of effort required to create change in an organization whose momentum is headed in the wrong direction. This involves changes of habits, processes, protocols, and standards. Change in any form is difficult. Change on an organizational level approaches the impossible. Real turnaround experts, from Steve Jobs to Lee Iacocca to Theo Epstein, do not seem to allow public or common perception of them affect the way they work. Chapter 10 Performance Evaluation. 201. For a workgroup or team to turn around its performance, there needs to be a strong voice that can compel the members of the group to follow a new path, a leader who can keep the team on the new bearing regardless of obstacles or resistance, and a personality magnetic enough to make people want to do the extra work required to create sustainable change. Sometimes that person comes from within and sometimes that person comes from the outside in the form of a team coach. Ben-Hur, Kinley, and Johnson, 2012. The following areas are typical problems that teams experience, and are good places to start initiating change. Improve project coordination. Start with clear roles, expectations, and deadlines for specific tasks. Have regular status updates. See if there are any problems. See if the project is still on schedule. Make adjustments as needed. Improve brainstorming and decision-making. The facilitator introduces the problem. Members silently write down their ideas for 10 to 15 minutes. Members share their ideas one at a time, that is round robin. The ideas are displayed for all to see. The group discusses each idea. Members anonymously rank their top 5 ideas, giving a score of 5 to their top choice, 4 to the second choice, and so on. The group's top choice will have the highest total. Reduce social loafing. Increase visibility of individual contributions. Promote involvement. Reward team members. Strengthen cohesion. Increase personal responsibility. Use team contracts. Provide feedback. Conduct regular training workshops on various topics such as these: conflict resolution, collaborative problem solving, communication, goal setting and performance management, planning and task coordination. Working in teams. 202. Managing paradox. For teams to make the leap from average to excellent, a number of subtle paradoxes must be managed. Hill, 1994. Many of the difficulties teams face have to do with managing the fine balance between competing priorities. The Carlton Ultimate Frisbee team, for example, managed paradox by embracing individual differences and collective identity and goals. After finishing second at the national championships in 2000, the team met and reached the conclusion that it needed to move from a system that utilized all-star players as often as possible, to a role-player model that relied on specialized skills that each player brought to the team. By focusing on teamwork and commitment, the team was able to optimize individual and collective performance, dominating the national tournament, and winning the 2001 national championship final, 15-11, over the University of Colorado. The Carleton team continued to nurture this focus on balancing individual contribution and collective excellence. As a result, won another national championship in 2009 and again in 2011. What makes this level of national success even more impressive is that Carleton's team hails from a school of fewer than 2,000 students, and competes against teams from the largest universities in the nation. The next paradox to be managed is the tension between fostering support and confrontation. Teams need to support and encourage one another, but they also need to be able to confront one another and to engage in authentic conversations about what is working and what is not working on the team. Effective leaders need to create a culture of trust that empowers members to ask questions, make suggestions, give candid feedback, and challenge processes. This pushes everyone to strive for the highest standards of performance. Attention must also be paid to striking a balance between process and product. Effective teams need to focus not only on operating procedures but also on performance outcomes. The challenge that exists is a perceptual one. Many groups and teams can view process evaluation as a distraction from performance. Yet discussing the interpersonal dynamics within a group can have long-term benefits. Improving the processes within a team will often improve its outcomes. The fourth component, finding a balance between authority and autonomy, is an elusive balance. Autocratic leadership, the sort we tend to see from turnaround experts, is the easiest way to lead. Give a command, have people take action, gather the results, lather. Chapter 10 Performance Evaluation 203. Rinse, repeat. Distributing leadership power and influence requires greater coordination and interdependence. Military Special Forces units such as the Navy SEALs strike this balance particularly well. In training, the members of these elite, Special Forces units are pushed to the end of their physical, psychological, and emotional capacity as they are honed for battle conditions and extenuating circumstances. Each individual is given specialized training in order to complement other members of the team. They are able to embrace the authority structure while being empowered to act with autonomy with regard to their own specialization. Finally, it is important for teams and groups to attend to the triangle of relationships between the individual and the manager and the team, and the individual and the team. Relationships commonly compete with one another, so the challenge that exists is one of finite resources and leadership bandwidth. Cliques and social preference can obstruct progress, especially on heterogeneous teams where differences can create a barrier to mutual trust and understanding. However, striking the relationship balance can help to create the necessary environment conducive to psychological safety, trust, and interdependence that can harness the potential of diversity. Leadership in action. John Cotter's theory of change management is widely accepted as the approach to carrying out successful and ongoing change initiatives in organizations of all sizes, from small teams to sprawling Fortune 500 conglomerates. Below are Cotter's 8 steps of change management as they appear in Leading Change, 1996, the author's authoritative work on the topic. By applying this rigorous and deliberate approach to executing change initiatives, what was once an unwieldy process becomes manageable, measurable, and sustainable. 1. Create a sense of urgency. 2. Form a powerful coalition. 3. Create a vision for change. 4. Communicate that vision throughout the organization. 5. Remove obstacles, and empower others to act on the vision. 6. Create short-term wins. 7. Build on the change. 8. Institutionalize the new approaches. First and foremost, Ch10 encourages leaders to create a sense of urgency, because he recognizes that it takes a meaningful amount of motivation to overcome the resistance of the status quo. Because groups and organizations resist change, leaders need to light a fire under their teams and organizations. Billy Beane successfully got his organization to focus on the pressing fact that they were outgunned and outfunded in terms of the players on. Working in teams. 204. Their team. To field a winning team, they had to change their talent identification and acquisition model. Once a sense of urgency has been established, leaders need to assemble a coalition of the most influential members of the organization and work with that group to create a shared vision. Ch10 explained this clearly when he said, "Leadership defines what the future should look like, aligns people with that vision, and inspires them to make it happen despite the obstacles." Leading Change, page 25. Then that vision can be communicated and executed within teams. Obstacles to change and old ways of doing things need to be replaced by new and improved processes created from the bottom up. Hopefully, teams and organizations will begin to see some positive results, which should be communicated and celebrated. Celebrating short-term wins is a great way to keep energy levels high and to keep people invested in the shared vision of the team. Turning the corner from implementing change to institutionalizing it requires the ability to see progress, and to measure it objectively. This will reinforce the feasibility of the changes, and create opportunities for people to embrace new habits and ideas. Change management is strongly linked to performance management, and is part of the work that leaders regularly perform. Teams must continually improve and refine internal processes in order to perform at their best. This requires evaluation, learning, intervention, and follow-through. The most effective teams continually evaluate their performance, learn from their mistakes, and make improvements. If leaders are not vigilantly pushing for continuous improvement, teams will become complacent. Ch10's 8 steps of change management can help teams move from high potential to high performance. Key terms: absence of trust 195, fear of conflict 195, lack of commitment 195, avoidance of accountability 195, inattention to results 195. Optimize individual and collective performance 202, support and confrontation 202, process and product 202, authority and autonomy 202, triangle of relationships 203. Discussion questions. 1. What is the key to using data effectively to help team performance? 2. What is the difference between task assessment and interpersonal assessment? What specific things can be done to assess a team in each area? 3. What are the 5 dysfunctions of a team, as identified by Ch10? Provide a description and example for each. 4. How can each of these dysfunctions be fixed? Be specific. 5. What are the 3 types of team learning? Explain each. Chapter 10, Performance Evaluation. 205. 6. What are change agents, and what do they do? 7. What are the paradoxes teams must manage? How can these paradoxes be managed? Group activities. Exercise 10.1, Evaluating team performance. Most classes that use this text will do team projects at some point in the course. Get into those project teams and answer the following questions. If you don't have a regular project team for this class, get into groups of 4 to 5 and describe previous team experiences. 1. What are the strengths of your project team? 2. What are the weaknesses of your team? 3. What specific things can you do to improve the team's performance? 4. What can you implement at your next meeting? Exercise 10.2, Assigning participation grades. Many college courses assign participation grades to evaluate the performance of students. Form groups of 4 to 5 students, and based upon the behavior you've observed in this course, Assign a participation grade to each member of your group. Use the following rubric to guide your evaluation. Feel free to use pluses and minuses to fine-tune the letter grades. Analytical. Frequently raises insightful questions, initiates discussions, integrates material from reading and lectures into discussions. Descriptive. Describes events and issues, asks questions, contributes opinions, completes exercises. Minimal. Participates when asked to do so. Marginal. Frequently inattentive or works on other assignments. After grades have been assigned to each member, discuss how you experience the process. Case 10.2, Reinforcing Wax Wings. The Daedalus Foundation is a nonprofit organization that reaches out to at-risk teenagers and offers programs to help them succeed in school. The foundation's executive director, Tanya, often feels torn between doing everything she can to save kids who have been fighting drug and alcohol addictions, abusive family environments, and other major challenges, and ensuring the financial viability of Daedalus by focusing on fundraising and expanding relationships with donors. Tanya, herself, is a recovering drug addict who came from a working in teams. 206. Wealthy family in Grosse Pointe. She found herself at rock bottom as a teenager after her parents kicked her out of the house, and she spiraled deeper into her addiction on the streets of Detroit. She knows that, without a helping hand from a program like Daedalus, she'd either be dead or in prison. In spite of her passion, in team meetings, Tanya often seems scattered and is too frequently interrupted by phone calls and people knocking on her door. She is a true servant to her cause, and gives everything she has to everyone, all day. Occasionally, her service can become a problem, though, because she cannot dedicate the kind of focus or attention necessary to plan fundraising events, execute disciplinary interventions with some of the struggling young people, or even carry out necessary interviews for interns, volunteers, and potential hires. Ramon, Tanya's head of operations, is a former gang member whom Daedalus helped by getting him back into school. He, too, is dedicated to the cause on a deeply personal level, but doubts that Tanya is the right person to lead the organization. He thinks she is too soft, preferring the tough love model of the executive director who led the foundation during Ramon's youth. He doesn't think that Tanya really understands the needs of the students due to the fact that she grew up in a very wealthy environment on the point. As a result, Ramon and Tanya are